Hey everyone, AGodlessProgressive here. Um, this video is going to be a critique of the Obama administration's education reform blueprint. Um, there are some things I liked about it, but there are many things I did not like about it. So let's start. First, I'm going to start with some of the things I liked about it before I get into the many things I did not like about it. First, it talks about raising the standards of all K through 12 schools, which I think is a good thing. I think standards are quite low, so I perceive that to be a good thing. Going along with the raising standards, promoting college readiness and success, I again find that to be a good thing. Tentatively, I tentatively agree with that. There's some issues with that, but I tentatively agree that that is a good thing. Another thing I agreed with was supporting student success, which I think is a very good thing, and I wholeheartedly support that. Um, another thing is that I agreed with was rigorous college and career ready standards, which I have kind of an issue with, which I'll get to later. But in general, I agreed with it. Um, and and the last thing I agreed with was rigorous and fair accountability and support at every level, which again I tentatively agree with. Okay, now that's done, let's get to my criticisms of it. Okay, so the first thing I had an issue with was it was actually a quote, and it is actually a quote that I find to be very problematic. It says, quote, "We know that from the moment the students enter the school, the most important factor is not the color of their skin or the income of their parents. It is the teacher standing in front of them." That's false. I cannot emphasize how false that is. I really could not emphasize how false that entire statement is. Um, so, so Arne Duncan and Barack Obama expect me to believe that income has nothing at all to do with how well a student does. Has nothing at all to do with that. I mean, I just find it to be an utterly laughable statement. That income has nothing to do with it. Income has nothing at all to do with how well a student does. Well, how come every study I've ever seen suggests the exact opposite of that statement? That's utter nonsense. I don't even know what that means. It's just utter nonsense. I mean, of course, it has a lot to do with how well you do. If you're in you're in an impoverished community, and you live around low-income people, you're not going to go to a affluent school. You're probably going to go to a low-income school that doesn't have the best resources, probably doesn't have the best teachers, and it's going to affect you. I mean, and we're not even talking about his family situation, his overall environment of living in living in an impoverished part of the community. We're not even talking about that. I'm just talking about the school. I mean, the statement is utterly that part of the statement is utterly laughable. Income has nothing to do with a young student's success. Utterly laughable. It's just ridiculous statement. Now they also say race is not a factor. Now I find that I find that a bit suspect. If race isn't a factor, how come that black and black and Hispanic kids tend to do worse than white kids? Why is that? It's not a factor. I mean, even I mean, I'm just sort of perplexed. Like, it has nothing to do with it. Then why do white kids on the whole do better than black and Hispanic kids? Why is that? Why, why is that a truth? Why does that happen? Now, I'm not saying there's a causation, but there's definitely a correlation between the two. There's definitely a correlation between being black and not doing well. And that may be a correlation between them maybe being poor, but still, I mean, it's obviously has some sort of factor. I mean, race has a factor in almost every aspect of your life. So to suggest that it doesn't have a factor in your schooling just seems like a perplexing statement to make. And to say that it's the teachers that are the most important thing. Okay. Teachers are a factor. They're not the only factor. You know, they're not Superman, right? They're people. And people really need to stop doing that. Stop saying, oh, all you need is great teachers. You know, it's not going to be one thing that fixes this, okay? It's not. So it's not going to be just a teacher, or you go to a new school, or whatever, or you build a new school or something. It is much more complicated than that. And to suggest that all you need is new teachers, it's just so utterly simplistic. It's so stunningly superficial and simplistic. It makes my head hurt. I mean, I also feel like doing this, just saying, oh, teachers are the most important thing, or the most important factor, leads to a sort of demonization of teachers, particularly the teacher unions. And I don't see the teachers and the teacher unions as the problem. I see them as part of the solution, along with other things that can be done to make education better. You know, I don't see anything in that statement that says anything about community. I don't see anything that talks about parent involvement. I don't see anything about support with the teachers, having a good administration that backs you up. Good teachers' aides. I don't see any of that in that statement. And they go on to admit that all those things are just as important. So why make that statement? The most important thing is teachers. Like, why make that statement? Why? Like, it's just a dumb thing to say. So let's move on to the next thing. The next thing I had problems was the raising standards. I know I said that was pro, but I have an issue with it. I feel like leaving to the states, and the districts is problematic, because states and districts don't have the same amount of resources, and leaving it to them to raise the standards, I see as problematic. Some states or districts are going to need more money than others, and I see a lot of talk about equitable, but I don't see any talk about making it fair. And that's the issue. That's an issue. can't leave it up to the states to improve the standards when they are at a disadvantage in terms of resources like money. So, and I didn't see much talk of how they're going to address that in here, and I see that as an issue. Another issue I saw was there was a talk of this program they're doing called Race to the Top, and there's also another program called Fostering an Innovation Fund. Now, Race to the Top is essentially a competitive-based, top-down, incentive-based program designed to raise the standards. Basically, the federal government has this money, and they're going to say whoever meets this standard gets this much money, and they're going to reward, states and districts who meet the standards. And the Fostering Innovation Fund is similar to Race to the Top. It is basically federal government giving money to states and districts that come up with innovative new ways of coming up with new curriculum and new states and districts that come up with a new curriculum of teaching or of innovating of teaching kids, and it's another way to sort of give more flexibility to these states and districts through money. Now, the issue I have with Race to the Top and Fostering an Innovation Fund is pretty simple. They are top-down, competitive-based. They're top-down, competitive-based, incentive-based structures. And when you have this top-down, competitive-based, incentive-based structure, a couple things usually happen. One is there are winners and losers. Two, the money that is doled out tends to get politicized. Now, the reason why it's such an issue that there are winners and losers when you dole out this money is that all throughout this report it talks about, we need to be equal and everything needs to be equitable and fair and right and just. Well, is it just to tell some low-income district that, hey, I guess you don't get money because your community's poor and you don't have the money to raise your standards? So I guess it's too bad for you. You don't get money. You don't get to raise your standards, and that means you don't get money. Now, that strikes me as highly unfair and unequitable. So how can this report preach constantly and incessantly about being equitable and being fair, and then present this top-down, competitive-based system which is going to discriminate against people?